Welcome to Literary AF Podcast.
And welcome to a very spooky episode of Literary AF Podcast.
That was your goof?
That was the goof for this week?
That was your big, clever goof that you had planned? You know we have another episode before Halloween comes up, right?
But I don't think I'm on that one.
I don't think you are, no. That'll probably be me and Arlene.
So you guys will have to do a spooky laugh.
Okay.
Anyway, welcome. My name is Sheldon.
I'm Danny.
And we're here today to talk to you about some books.
Books!
Alright, so today we don't have one book we want to talk about.
No, not specific.
We want to do some recommendations.
Yeah, just kind of mix things up a little bit. I know we've all been a little bit busy in the last couple weeks, so we haven't had a whole lot of time.
Haven't had a ton of time to do to finish a book or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like 100 pages in on what I'm reading right now.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through what I'm working on, so I'll be done by next week. But
cool. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to do some recommendations.
Yeah.
Danny, are yours themed?
They're romance books that
Okay.
I've read in the last couple of years that I really enjoyed, and I'd like to see people reading more of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And mine are all spooky because Halloween's coming up.
Halloween is coming up, yeah. That fits.
I like spooky books, but I don't read a lot of horror or scarier genres.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I love a spooky book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to do your first book?
Okay. Let me just see here. I grabbed 6 books because there was a period where I thought I was going to be recording this all by myself, and I was trying to fill out a half an hour on my own. But I'm going to just chop it down to some of the ones that I like the most.
Okay.
A couple of weeks ago, I actually read a book called Act Like It by Lucy Parker.
Ooh.
This is a contemporary romance.
Ooh.
That is it's in a series called London Celebrities.
Okay.
And it's just I dropped it. I guess the tropes in this book are enemies to lovers and fake relationship.
Ooh.
So basically the plot is that this actor named Richard Troy has a bit of a temper, and he's known for having tantrums and getting in trouble and stuff like that.
Old grumpy Dick Troy.
Yeah, basically. And his PR person, his publicist, and the director of the show they're doing, the stage show, is like, we need to get you some better press because you're ruining us. And the solution is basically to pretend that he's dating one of his co-stars on the stage, who has a better reputation than he does. And they're hoping that she might rub off on him a little bit. Her name is Lainey.
Okay.
And she is working in part of a charity that helps kids with cancer.
Okay.
And what she gets out of this is they're going to donate a bunch of the money that they make from their show to her charity. Okay. So she's like, yeah, all right, I'll do it for the kids or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, I would definitely call it a rom-com. Yeah. It's got it's very light and comedic.
That premise is very rom-com-y.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's basically he has to tag along with her to charity events and galas, and she goes with him to press stuff. And it's not very long. I'd say it's about 300 pages or so. I think I read it in one sitting. Oh, okay. And it's very good. Definitely check it out. I read the most recent book in the series called The Austen Playbook. Okay. Which is, because they all kind of follow a bunch of stage actors and makeup artists and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the newest one that just came out, I think in May this year, is about a Jane Austen type stage show that's getting adapted. Okay. And the lead she's playing Lydia Bennet.
Okay, awesome.
On this adaptation that's based off a visual novel kind of thing, where all these Austen heroes got together, and it's a choose your own adventure murder mystery. The premise was really cool, and I kind of wish it was real. And she ends up staying on the estate of a super grumpy stage critic, and things kind of happen between them. It's really good. Cool. I loved it.
What's that one? The Playbook?
The Austen Playbook.
Austen Playbook. What's the author again?
Her name is Lucy Parker. Okay. And all these books are really well received in like the communities that I've seen so far. So definitely check them out if you're looking for something like romantic comedy, contemporary, very fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a light, like enjoyable read.
Yeah, it is. It's just a good time all around. All of them are.
All right, well, that sounds like a good segue for me to do my book, which is spooky and not a good time. Okay, the first one I'm going to recommend is Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter.
Okay.
It's a collection of short stories. Some of them are pretty hit and miss, but the one that gets the name, the Bloody Chamber, is
Titular?
very good.
Yeah.
It's she does a lot of updates of like old school like fairy tales and stuff.
Okay.
Like she does an update of Beauty and the Beast. She does an update of I don't remember all of them, but they're all like pretty classic tales. The Bloody Chamber is an update of the story Bluebeard.
Okay, the guy who killed like his wives.
Yes, yeah. Who kept marrying girls, and then the girl would find the chamber where all the dead wives were, and then he'd be like, "Well, you went to my secret chamber. That means I have to kill you." Yep. Angela Carter is like pretty feminist, and her books have that kind of, or her stories have that kind of slant to them. Yeah. And so it's like kind of taking this old like misogynistic man killing his wife story and updating it. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. It's kind of spooky. It's like a good twist on the original Bluebeard story. Yeah. And at the end, I think they shoot the guy with a shotgun instead of, so Bluebeard can't kill any more wives. Okay, yeah. It's a very good little fun twist.
That does sound pretty fun, yeah.
And it's, the actual short stories are like, not, like, well, I was going to say they're not long.
They're short stories.
That's what I call short stories. But yeah, you can easily read them in like an afternoon or something, and so that's my spooky recommendation number one.
Spooky rec? Okay.
All right, what's your what's the opposite of spooky?
Normal? I don't know.
We're doing like a Beauty and the Beast episode where your tales are Beauty and mine are Beast.
Actually, yeah, that's pretty good.
All right.
Yeah.
So what's our next beauty recommendation?
So the next one that I've picked is called The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan. This one is actually a historical romance. Okay. It's the third book in the series, technically, because there's like a prequel novella, and then there's the first book, and then there's this book. Mm-hmm. And this one is about, she's an heiress, I don't remember to what, but she's got a lot of money, basically. Sweet. And she can't use it to leave the living situation she's in right now, which kind of really sucks, because she's living with her uncle and her sister has, I guess it's like epilepsy. Okay. But it's not like diagnosed properly, so they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her, and all these doctors keep coming in and they're like shocking her with electricity and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff, like blooding her and things like that. Mm-hmm. And she wants to keep her sister safe, and to do that she has to stay in the house, so she can't spend her fortune to leave. She also has to try to repel all of the guys who want to try to marry her, and because she has so much money, guys want to try to marry her. So her strategy to do this is to just be the loudest, most obnoxious person that she possibly can. She wears the ugliest dresses she can buy. Okay. And she's just like doing all of the social faux pas that she shouldn't be doing as an heiress. And it was actually really funny. I think this is the favorite one for me in the series so far. Okay. And her hero of the book, his name is Oliver Marshall. Yeah. He's a bastard son, and his biological father was a duke. Ooh. And he was raised into this society, but he was kind of bullied for it because he's a bastard son. Okay. And he hates seeing people bullied. So when he shows up and there's this lady who's just doing all the wrong things and people are like laughing at her behind her back, he gets really upset about it. And he's trying to be like really nice to her, and she's trying to repel him as fast as she can, kind of thing. Okay. And I really like the heroine of this book. Like, when I didn't realize what she was doing, I felt really bad for her. Mm-hmm. But it turns out she's like super funny and she's super smart. And I've read 4 of the books I guess 2 books, 2 novellas so far in the series. I think there's 3 more, so I'm about halfway through. And yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite ones so far. The relationship between the 2 of them is like very slow. It doesn't feel like it's the focal point of the story, kind of. It's there, it's important, but it's not like the primary driving plot. So.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your next spoopy book?
Oh, so I usually talk about classics, and I couldn't think of a lot of good spooky classics to recommend.
Right.
I mean, there's like Gothic literature has some, but they're weird.
So you said spooky classics. I went to like Stephen King, but you were talking about even further back.
Even further back. But one book I can recommend is a little known story, you might not have heard of it, called The Phantom of the Opera.
Is that a book?
It is a book by, what's his name? Gaston Leroux.
Oh, today I learned.
Early 1900s.
Okay.
It is a little different from the musical.
Okay.
But the main plot elements are there.
No song lyrics written on page?
I don't think
like
so.
fanfics from the early 2000s, songfics.
Yeah. It's all I ask of you. I actually really like The Phantom, the musical. Yeah. And the book it's significantly different, and it's got a different feel to it. Mm-hmm. But it's like the same general stories there. It's still Christine Daae is this great new singer at the opera. Everyone loves her, and especially the strange masked man from the basement. He loves her a lot too.
You could be the strange masked man in our basement if you really wanted to.
That is true. I do live in a basement. I'm not horribly disfigured though. I'm quite handsome, ladies. But yeah, so I'm sure you know the story. If you haven't, go watch the musical right now. No, actually, wait till after the episode.
Yeah, you may want to.
The musical's like 2 hours.
It is very long.
This episode's only going to be half an hour.
Yeah. It's actually, I didn't like The Phantom of the Opera very much.
Really?
I love musicals, and I didn't really appreciate Phantom of the Opera, even a little bit, until like this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know, just never.
Actually, I didn't love it the first time I heard it. It was more like, but some of the songs got stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And then like later I started to like it more.
Yeah. I saw it on Broadway in New York when I was in high school.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I just didn't give a single shit. And it's such a missed opportunity, and I'm so sad about it now. Yeah.
Oh,
we saw Mamma Mia, and I was so into that one, though.
Well, okay, I don't blame you. ABBA, they do work magic.
Yeah.
But they're not spooky. Like
no, they're not spooky.
One difference I'd say is in the musical, the Phantom is like, he's like kind of hot in a vampire way. You know what I mean, though? Like he's like handsome and mysterious and dark and dangerous. As somebody who's read
so many paranormal romances this year, yeah, I get it.
Okay. So that's how he is in the musical.
Yeah.
In the story, he's just like a creep. He's straight up like a mysterious, like a murderous man in a mask who keeps kidnapping Christine. And then Christine like begs Raoul to save her.
Right.
And then the Phantom overhears and he's like, actually, I'm just going to kidnap you again. One thing I'll say about the book that, like, I was like really into it, and then the ending of the book it's extremely whack. That's the most eloquent way I can put it.
Sure.
Like, he sets up these weird trap rooms for them, like something almost out of Saw, where it's like, oh, this room is extremely hot and slowly filling with sand. What are you gonna do? And then they just like slowly solve the mystery of the sand puzzle and escape. And it's like, I can't imagine the musical ending with a sand puzzle.
Sand puzzle.
Also, the book is obsessed with, you must protect your neck. You always have to protect your neck. Hold your hand like an L in front of your neck to protect your neck. Because the Phantom just keeps sneaking up behind people and choking them out.
Corroding them?
Yeah. And so everyone in the book is constantly talking about this. And Raoul, he goes down to save Christine. And the first thing he does is not protect his neck.
Does he get strangled?
Well, that's how he gets thrown to the sand pit. He gets strangled and thrown to a sand pit. But yeah, so other than the ending being a little iffy, the book is still solid and it's solidly creepy, and it is a classic.
Yeah, all right.
All right, what's our next on our on the good side of the coin?
On the good side, I like this contrast we've got going on.
Yeah.
The next one I think I've actually talked about before. I may have mentioned it in one of our very first episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Iron Duke by Meljean Brook.
You have mentioned that one before.
I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show or if I've just mentioned it to you, like, in passing, though. So,
okay.
This is actually a steampunk book, and I'm not a huge fan of steampunk itself. I never really got into the setting or the genre.
Mm-hmm.
But this one takes place in, like, 19th century England, which I think is the norm, usually. Victorian England.
Yeah. Well, I think that's when, like, the Gothic stories happened. So.
Right.
Wait, I forgot. This one's not a...
This one's not Gothic, this one's steampunk.
I was going to be like, that's why so many horror books were sent back then, but okay.
No, it's steampunk.
Well, that's also Victorian, yeah.
Okay. So there's airships and people have, like, mechanical body parts and there's, like, krakens and zombies and stuff like that, which I thought was super cool. I don't think you see a lot of zombies in steampunk.
Yeah, just not enough.
So the titular character of this book is Rhys, Rhys. I've never been sure.
I think that's Rhys.
Rhys?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he is the Iron Duke. He is basically a pirate who turned into a hero after he saved the country from okay, so the Mongol horde basically put a bunch of nanobots into, like, rice and grain and stuff, and then shipped it to England, and then the people in England ate all this rice or grain or whatever, and then they had the nanobots inside them, and what happened was the horde ended up being able to control the people through the nanobots with, like, radio towers and stuff like that. And what Rhys did was he basically flew his airship into one of the radio towers and freed England from the control.
Okay.
And so he's, like, a well-regarded hero or whatever. And the heroine of the book, her name is Mina.
Okay.
She is half Mongol. And she's, like, a detective lady. Mm-hmm. And she's always dealing with, like, prejudice because people hate her people for what they did. And she's, like, super strong, super badass lady. She's, like, super small, but she'll totally kick your butt.
Awesome.
And the story opens with a body, like, literally being dropped on the Iron Duke's doorstep. And, her, like, right out of an airship, it just plops right onto his doorstep. And Mina has to go and basically solve the murder. And then this turns into, like, solving the murder turns into saving the country from an evil plot problem. And I really like the world building in this one. It was super cool. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of steampunk, but I was totally into this one. Mm-hmm. And the sequel I actually liked even more, but I feel like you should read The Iron Duke before you read the sequel.
Okay.
The sequel's called Heart of Steel.
Ooh.
And the heroine of this book is, like, another super badass lady. She's, like, a airship captain pirate.
Oh, I love sky pirates.
Yeah, she's a sky pirate, basically. And in The Iron Duke, she interacts with a guy named Archimedes, who is, like, an adventurer.
Okay.
And he's got a map, and she wants it, or she has the map, and he wants either way. She ends up booting Archimedes, like, literally off the side of her airship, like, dozens of feet down into a zombie horde. And he's never seen again, except he comes back in the next book to be the counterpoint to her. And it was actually a really fun story. So, that's my third one.
All right.
Yeah, that's 3.
Do you remember? Did I talk back in our short story episode?
Yep.
Did we talk about one called The Yellow Wallpaper?
No, I don't think so.
Yay! I can talk about The Yellow Wallpaper. So it's another short story. It's called The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Stetson.
Okay.
It is about a newlywed couple who the house they're supposed to move into isn't done yet.
Okay.
So they're staying at this old, like, spooky house, basically.
Okay.
The husband is constantly out on business and just leaving his newlywed wife alone at home.
Well, that's never a good thing.
Yeah, and it's he basically, I think it's been a little while since I've read the whole thing, and it's a short story. It's like 10 pages long. I should have read this before, but
that's all right.
Yeah, our plans changed a little bit before this episode.
Yeah, it was a last minute thing. So.
But anyway, so I think she's sick and she's been, like, told to stay home by the doctor. Her husband is a doctor.
Okay.
And she's been told to stay home to, like, get her strength up and to breathe fresh air from outside or whatever.
Right.
And the room she ends up sitting in has this gross yellow wallpaper, and she can't stop staring at it. Eventually, as the days go by, she starts to think that she sees a woman hiding in the wallpaper, or like hiding behind the wallpaper. It's not quite clear. It starts with just like, oh, it's weird, but I think I see someone staring out from behind the pattern, to like, I'm pretty sure the woman in the wallpaper can get out, and I've seen her walking around outside.
Oh.
And she keeps going on about this woman in the wallpaper, and is like, I wish I could remember what the, like, I don't want to just go straight into what the twist is.
Well, if you're going to read the story, pause it right now. It's only 10 pages. You can knock it out in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then...
Actually, yeah. I would recommend this book, or this short story, like, to everyone, especially if you like things that are, like, a little bit creepy. And it's from, like, the same time period as Phantom, so, like, early 1900s, so it is still kind of a classic.
Yeah.
It is 10 pages. You can find it on Google. Like, I just found a PDF just now that I'm kind of passing through.
Probably old enough that it's, like, public domain now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
He's not advocating you stealing stuff.
No. It's for real free. It's not stealing.
Like, you can get most Jane Austen stuff online for free now, too, so.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I really like it. It's I'll give you a small hint about the twist. Somebody in the story loses their mind and starts to think that they're the woman in the wallpaper.
Oh.
And it's a good, like, unreliable narrator thing, because it starts off being like, oh, you know, what's wrong with this poor sick girl? To be like, oh, okay, she's actually
crazy,
sick in the head. I understand. Okay. But then it's also like, it kind of thinks of, like, the way she's treated by everyone, and the way, like, the men, like, lock her up in a room, and basically, like, the way they used to treat women with hysterics.
Right.
And so it's like, kind of like, oh, is she really crazy, or is it the way they're treating her? Or is there something supernatural? Is there, like, a real spooky ghost hiding behind the wallpaper?
See, I was thinking, like, maybe the wallpaper is actually just an off-color window.
Oh, okay.
She's just freaking out whenever her neighbor walks by.
That'd be really funny.
She's in the wallpaper, but it's just like an off-yellow window.
See, the first time I read it, I remember thinking that there was something about the pattern that was, like, making her sick, like, you know, like one of those things where it's like, oh, the music plays these secret notes that makes you...
A brown note?
No. I was thinking creepypasta of, like, ooh, if you listen to the Pokemon song backwards, it makes you kill people.
Okay.
That makes you poop your pants.
Okay.
There's no pants pooping in this one.
No.
Anyway, that was... Oh, wait, I'm going to pair one other short story with this, just because it was a short story. We talked about The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe in our short story episode.
Yep.
It's still a good one. Still check it out. If you've never read The Telltale Heart, that is another really good spooky one. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the premise is basically this guy kills his neighbor for kind of no reason, and then he buries him, or he just buries his heart beneath the floorboards.
I think he buries the whole body beneath the floorboards.
But it's the beating of the heart that he hears.
He hears the beating of the heart, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a fun little story. It's like 6 pages long.
I think we read that in school.
Yeah, some people got to read Edgar Allan Poe in school, and I was not one of those people.
You did not? No.
But yeah, it's like a fun little creepy story. Yeah. Check it out. All right, well, that is my third-ish.
Yeah, that's 3.5. 3.5, yeah.
So now, let's hear from the beauty side of the table.
All right. Oh, man, I should have gone with... Okay, so my next one is Master of Crows by Grace Draven.
Okay.
Which I think I've also mentioned on, like, maybe the first or second episode.
Okay.
But I should have gone with her other book called Entreat Me, which was actually a Beauty and the Beast adaptation, which it would have fit perfectly.
And our theme that we came up with halfway through the episode.
I should have done it, because I was torn between which one I wanted to do. I loved them both. Mm-hmm. But The Master of Crows is a fantasy setting. Basically, the heroine's name is Martise of Asher, and she's a slave, basically, and she's being sent to spy on a super powerful sorcerer named Silhara. Okay. And if she does this, they'll give her soul back or whatever, and she can be free. Silhara he's the Master of Crows. Okay. And he's currently being tempted/possessed by the god of corruption. Mm-hmm. And the god is trying to convince him to become his avatar, and they can take over the world together, destroy everything.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. So obviously he doesn't want to do that. But he's like, as time goes on, he's starting to lose control of himself.
Okay.
And so the second Martise shows up, he's like, oh, this is a spy. Like, immediately knows the truth. He doesn't say that to her, but there's no secret. And it sort of follows them, I guess, becoming closer and eventually deciding to team up to try to kill a god, basically.
Okay.
And this was actually one of the first books that I read that was billed as a romance novel.
Okay.
I only read romance novels now, but I've only been reading them for the last 3 years, maybe.
Okay.
I lost my job a couple years ago, and I got really bored, and I was like, I watched all of the romantic comedies that I could find, and I'm like, I wish there was more of this. Why isn't there more of this? Oh, wait. I think there's some books that do this.
It turns out there's some massive industry books.
Turns out there's a lot of books that do this kind of thing. So this was one of the ones I first picked up, and I really, really enjoyed it, because I didn't expect it to be... Like, it's definitely a fantasy novel. There's magic, and there's, like, adventure, and I think they fight a lich at some point.
Ooh,
like,
fun.
it's pretty cool. And it's great. I think if you're a fan of fantasy, and you're kind of maybe not totally on board with romance as a genre, like, you haven't got a whole lot of experience with it, I think I would definitely check something like this out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It does sound cool.
It is. It's really good. So that's my number 4.
All right.
You got another spoopy one?
Yeah, I have 2 more.
Okay.
All right. So this one is a very long poem.
Okay.
By Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
I guess we are literary, and poems are literary. Yeah. Yeah.
It's from 1834, so it's back in the classic period.
Okay.
Slightly after the Gothic period. I think we're in Romantics at this point.
Okay.
I think Coleridge was one of the friends of, like, what's her name?
Byron?
Yes.
And that whole friend group there?
Yeah, it's like Mary Shelley and Percy Shelley and Byron. I think Coleridge was, like, either one of the friends or, like, associated around that group. Maybe they were, like, rivals or something. Anyway, this poem called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Oh, we had to read that one for school, too.
Yes, it's another classic. I had to read this one in university.
Oh.
And, but I actually ended up really liking it. It's about a strange old sailor man, an ancient mariner, you might say.
An ancient mariner, yes.
He shows up at a wedding and starts harassing one of the guests and makes him listen to a story. That's actually how it starts. It's really weird.
Okay.
His story is that while they were sailing, a little albatross, which is like a bird with... Oh, I think it's the bird with the longest wingspan in the world.
It is, yeah, it does. It has, like, super long wings.
And that is today's episode of Danni and Sheldon Give You Bird Facts.
Bird Facts. Also, it just makes me think of that song.
Which one?
There's a song. It's like a light rock song. Something about an albatross. We'll
put that in the show notes.
We'll forget about it.
We will forget about that one. So anyway, the albatross comes. It hangs out on the ship for a while. They take it as a good omen at sea because it's like, oh, I don't know, it's an albatross. They take it as a sign from God. And then the ancient mariner just one day decides to just kill the bird. And it's just like, he doesn't do it for food or he doesn't do it for anything other than he's just basically bored. And is like, oh, I'm going to shoot this bird.
The song is called Albatross by Big Wreck.
Oh, Big Wreck.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
After the albatross gets shot, they basically, the wind starts blowing them out into the middle of the sea where they come across, like, ocean gods who are, like, determined to kill them. They come across, like, a ghost ship, or it's like a zombie ship or something. They go through all sorts of spooky adventures. Basically, everyone on the ship dies except for the sailor who's being punished by the gods. And, yeah, so they're, like, driven around the sea. He can't control where he's going. He comes across all this supernatural stuff, all these things that are, like, trying to kill him. But I just like the language. It's a really, like, well-written poem. It's exciting because nothing really makes sense. Like, you just keep going from thing to thing, and there's some, I don't know, like, symbolism or whatever in it.
That's what they said in high school. Some symbolism or whatever.
I feel like if I was writing an essay on this, I would be able to put it into better words than that, but I don't know. It's, I I just enjoyed it.
Okay. I don't remember anything about it. Because I find, like, when there's stuff I had to read for school, I hated it no matter what it was. Like, just the default was to absolutely hate whatever it was. And I just never remembered anything that I read.
Yeah, I don't think... In high school, I remember, like, reading the books and just being, like, just getting enough information so that I could write about it if I had to.
But we watched the movies, like, right after we read the books, so I never had to read the books. Because I knew the movie was coming up anyway.
No, I always read the book because... I hated that feeling of sitting in a class when the teacher is going around and being like, who's done the readings for today? And then if you put up your hand and then they're like, okay, well, what happened in this part? And you're like, oh, actually, I didn't do the readings. I was just trying to be cool.
Just wanted to be one of the cool kids who did their homework.
Yeah, I just hated being put on the spot. So that's why I did the readings.
All right.
Or skipped the classes. But yeah, and then in university, I was more like, oh, I actually understand this stuff now and I actually can enjoy it.
Yeah. It's different as an adult.
Yeah.
But when you're like 15 and you don't want to be there, it's not great.
Yeah, so if you read this story in like high school or this poem and didn't like it or didn't get it and you're like an adult now, I would suggest reading it again because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun story about a sailor who's gone utterly mad. All right, are we on our last recommendations?
I have 2 more, but I don't need to do both of them. I can save them for another time. So
okay, let's do one more each because we're at 30 right now.
Okay, so my next one is another contemporary romance.
Okay.
This one is called A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole.
Ooh.
The hero of this book is actually an African prince. He's been like looking for his betrothed, who he was best friends with when they were children, and they were betrothed, and her family like ran away from the country, and he lost her, and he's been looking for her ever since. And the heroine is obviously his betrothed, Naledi. She doesn't know who she is. Her parents died when she was a kid, and she was like raised in the system, and now she's like a grad student who's basically busting her butt all the time trying to get stuff done.
Okay.
And she keeps getting these emails that are like, hey, you're married to an African prince, or you're supposed to be married to an African prince, you know, send us your details and we'll get back to you. And she keeps deleting them because obviously Nigerian prince scams.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really funny. Basically what he does, Thabiso is his name, I think.
Okay.
He flies to, I think it's New York, and he flies down to find her. And he shows up at the restaurant where she works, and he comes in, and she's like, oh, you're the new hire. Okay, put your apron on, put your shirt on, let's get going. And he's trying to keep up with her at this, like, super important catering event. And she's, like, trying not to yell at him the whole time, but he has absolutely no idea what he's doing because he's a prince. And he ends up, like, almost burning the building down. And she throws him out. And what he ends up doing is he actually goes to the apartment building where she lives. He talks to her neighbor and it's like, hey, why don't you go on vacation? Let me rent out your apartment. Here's like $40,000. And her neighbor's like, yeah, okay. And then leaves, and he rents out that apartment, and then he does this whole like, hey, fancy meeting you here, you know, I'm your neighbor. And he's using like a fake name, so she has no idea he's actually a prince or anything. And they bond, and the secret comes out, and there's like a huge fight, and she ends up, there's like a sickness outbreak in his country, but it's not just like an average, like, oh no, mad cow. It's like super mysterious. It's only cropping up in certain places, and it's only affecting certain people. And she's, what is that, pathology? She studies like diseases and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know, just come with me and help me figure this out, you know, and we'll get you a good job or whatever. And she's still like super mad at him, but she goes with him anyways. And this one it's a bit more serious than a rom-com, but it has its like funny moments. It's not heavy, but it's not as light as like Act Like It is, because that was just like a super fun, super chill time. This one feels like it has a little bit more meat on it.
Okay.
But it's really good. Definitely check it out if you're looking for, I guess, like a contemporary romance, but not something that's like a rom-com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
What's your next spooky? If you got another spooky.
So last spooky.
Last spooks.
This one's pretty basic, but like I said, I don't get to read too much.
Yeah.
horror. And it's actually my only, like, my only experience with this author, and that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King.
I like that one.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, the movies, I've heard mixed things about the movies. You saw the new movie, right?
No, I haven't seen the new movie yet, actually. I did really like the old movie, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen either of the movies.
Oh, you should.
But the new one has very, like, middling reviews, which is kind of sad.
Because they changed, like, some key stuff in the new movie.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this book is basically guy moves with his family to a new town.
In Maine. Always in Maine.
Oh, yeah, that's the Stephen King one. There, they have a cat, and the cat's always getting out of the house, right?
Yeah, Church. Named after Winston Churchill.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, this girl that I have a crush on, her dog's named Church. I wonder if that's because of this book.
Maybe.
Oh, hopefully she doesn't listen to this podcast, because that's a big giveaway.
That is a pretty big giveaway.
Holly, if you're listening, I'm talking about somebody totally different. Anyway, so it's about... So he's got this cat. The cat keeps escaping. One day the cat gets run over by a truck.
Yep.
The family's devastated, right? But the dad... I don't know. But anyway...
Like, his neighbor is like, you better come fetch your cat.
Yeah. And then the neighbor tells him about the pet cemetery.
Yeah.
And it's this place out in the... like, deep in the woods or swamp or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like an ancient Indian burial ground. Apparently, if you bury something there, it'll come back...
Yeah.
But it'll come back different. So he buries the cat there. Then, sure enough, the cat comes back, but the cat is, like, mean and smells bad.
Yeah.
And, like, he just hates the cat now.
The cat hates him.
The cat hates him,
The cat is super mean after it comes back.
And so that's kind of the first half of the story.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, this is, like, kind of weird, but I don't get how this is supposed to be scary.
But then it gets worse.
And then it gets really bad when... his son gets hit by the car on the same road, right?
Yeah.
And then the dad kind of loses his mind because it's like a very small kid.
Yeah.
The dad basically grave robs his own son.
Yep.
And takes the body to the pet cemetery.
Yep.
And then when the kid comes back, the book gets really scary.
The book, yeah.
And really weird.
The kid
and really,
comes back evil and then goes on a murdering spree.
That's right. It's, I don't remember... I remember being really, like, enthralled by the ending, but I can't remember if I remember some things being like, what? Are you serious?
There's more it's not, like, more supernatural in the book, but they talk about, like, there's Wendigo in the woods, and the Wendigo is the spirit that brings them back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I always like that a little better. The book is better than the movies, for sure. That's how it usually goes.
Yeah.
But they're both really good. I like them both.
Yeah, and I just find... Like, at least from this book, I don't know if it's, like, typical of Stephen King, but, like, just even, like, the non-scary parts are just very, like, he has this, like, his tone and stuff is kind of conversational.
Yeah.
It's kind of, like, you just feel like you're listening to somebody, like tell you a story.
Yeah,
and
for
it's,
sure.
like, it's not a hard read, but, or, like... It's not even a super easy read, but it's just kind of like a very, like, natural feeling story.
Yeah.
And I found myself getting into the non-scary parts, and when the scary parts would happen, I'd be like, oh, like, it's more effective because I care about what's going on.
Yeah. And Stephen King, I've read a couple Stephen King books now.
What else have you read?
I've read Bag of Bones was the first Stephen King book that I read.
Okay.
It's not super scary. It's kind of a ghost story about a writer who goes to Maine to write some books.
Fun.
Which is the premise of most of Stephen King's horror books, I think. But I also read... So I read Bag of Bones, and then I read Pet Sematary. And then I read a book called Lisey's Story.
Okay.
Which is not a horror at all. It's weird. I did not like it at all.
Awesome.
I've also read It.
Oh, how was that?
The book is so good.
Okay.
It's like 1,000 pages long. I listened to the audiobook. It was like 44 hours long or something.
Oh, wow.
At the time I was working at a desk, and I just...
Listen to audiobooks at work all day?
This is actually at my last job. I listened to this book like 4 years ago.
Okay.
We were doing some super monotonous task all day where I was sitting in the desk just punching numbers on like this little debit terminal because we were punching through cards manually. Mm-hmm. And I got through the whole book in about a week.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I think, it's one of the best audiobooks I think I've listened to. Mm-hmm. The narrator was just so good. It was, like, I think Stephen King's style works really well for an audiobook because it's like somebody's telling you a story.
Yeah. So
when there's a narrator who's really good at his job, he's telling you the story, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of want to read it, but I'm a little wary about some of the parts, like the little kid orgy and stuff.
That is like a page in the back half of the book.
Because I feel like that page gets shared a lot on Twitter.
That is not even the weirdest part. Honestly, there's like the space turtle and yeah.
So I don't know how true this is, but I hear that out of all Stephen King's books, he wrote it the fastest. He wrote it like when he was like, he wrote it over the course of like a weekend or something. He wrote like the first draft, and apparently he was like super high on cocaine is the like rumor, but I don't know how true that is. I want to read that one. I want to read The Shining.
Yep.
And I want to read Carrie, and I want to read Misery.
Yes.
Those are the 4 Stephen King ones I really want to read.
Have you seen the movies for those? You've seen the movies for those, right?
Just Shining. Shining's the only one I've seen of all those.
Oh, you gotta watch Misery. Kathy Bates is amazing. That is such a good movie.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah.
On my 1,000 movie long list of things I keep meaning to watch.
Oh, Stephen King's so good.
Yeah, so anyway, that's our recommendation episode.
Yeah, we did pretty good for not having anything really ready to go except for like an hour ago.
Yeah, that's true.
So, it's a lot of fun today.
It was. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I hope you guys picked up a few books to add to your list.
Yeah, if you check any of these books out, reach out, send a comment, send an email.
Oh, and where can they do that, Danny?
They can reach us at Gmail, LiteraryAFPod@gmail.com.
Okay.
Also on Twitter, LiteraryAFPod. We're on Facebook, LiteraryAF. And we're also on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and Podbean, LiteraryAF. I think I got everything. My own Twitter, if you want to just send me a message, because I see it more often than I do on the actual LiteraryAF Twitter, is Danny_Reeds.
Okay.
Unless you have anything you want to plug, I think that's it.
You can find my Twitter at Sheldoman.
Mm-hmm.
I check it very rarely, but it's still fun.
I'm on it all the time, so if you need to reach out or want to say something to someone...
So if there's an emergency, talk to Danny.
You can come find me, yeah.
And what are you guys talking about next week?
We're undecided. I'm finishing up an arc for a book called Zenny.
Okay.
Which we did an episode of the book that came before called Rafe.
Okay.
I think that was like one of our earlier episodes that we did. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to talk about Zenny either next week or the week after. I'm not sure what order we're going to do it in.
Sure.
And do that for sure.
And then in 3 weeks, I will be talking about Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier.
Oh, yeah.
It is, I'm 100 pages into it, and I actually love it so far.
Is it spooky?
Yeah, it's kind of spooky.
Cool.
So, good Halloween read. If you want to read that in the next 3 weeks, then when I talk about it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
When I do... Next week, I think I'm going to talk about a book called Halloween Boo.
Ooh.
It's a romance, Halloween-themed romance short story.
Love it.
That was a lot of fun to read. It was super quick. It was recommended by a friend of mine on Twitter, B in her books. And it was great.
Awesome.
So I'll talk about that a bit next week.
All right.
For Halloween.
We gave you like 13 different books to read. So make sure you do your homework, and then next week we'll quiz you on it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the flippity side.
Bye.